Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, we're back again. It's Wednesday, the January 18th. I was just looking the other day. This is episode like 163 or 164. But what makes it better than that? We've brought ourselves back with the king of collecting, the sultan of stuff, the mastermind of mine in the world of collecting, DCD's own Doug Dreier.
How's it going, Sean? Good to see you again. I love these quarterly chats that we get to do.
We got to do it, brother. I mean, and I have to tell you, so Doug and I were talking, one of our favorite pastimes is when Doug and I talk sports. What do we think? I can't tell you. Oh, look at this. Look who just snuck in here. DC.
Woo! DC.
Hey, DC. I know you're like 2 rooms over. Bring your ass over.
One room over. He's just right next door.
Bring your ass and come over and say hello to everyone.
But he makes, I feel inadequate with the facial hair. Like, I feel like I've got a good thing going, and then he comes in, and then you, and I've just got like this 5 o'clock shadow thing, and you and him just, I feel very inadequate throughout.
You know what it is? It's the prior service thing.
Yeah.
We were required to wear a beard so ridiculously large, especially, depending upon your branch of service. It's one of those things like, you go like, I'm done. I'm not having a beard.
Yeah.
It's a requirement, but you'll like this. So as we were coming into the show, just before we got started, and we'll do our house cleaning in a moment, folks.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends, Tom Wolf, sends me a message from CBS Sports New York. And guess what it says? Guess what it says, Doug?
What does it say?
It says Giants named as a potential landing spot for Lamar Jackson during 2023 NFL offseason.
Get out of here, man.
Look, there he is. Hey,
dang, man. I tell you. It's like swatting flies around here. Yep, it's that would be astounding. I like Daniel Jones, but I mean, if you can upgrade, it's going to be one of those nights, isn't it? Look at this. I got this happening back here.
Look at that. I mean, it is I mean, how was he this week? I really need to know how DC was this week. Did you keep a defibrillator close by that in case like bradycardia or something like that?
I was only trying to I would just send messages like, oh no, wow, those they're going to lose and try to build it. No, he was good. We didn't talk during the game. I can't. I know. So I'm having a little Super Bowl thing, and I've invited DC and his family. But if the Bills are in, he's got to be in a separate room, like me. Like if my team, when the Rams are in the Super Bowl, I don't want people around me. It's not enjoyable. And so it's you ask him, DC, come on over, man. Join the thing. Ice Wolf says these are just starter beards. You guys are
like I've never like is Ice Wolf rocking that? I've never seen him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's got some impressive facial growth. True. Yeah, absolutely.
And for those of you for the first time you're hearing DC's voice, he has a face for radio. Just
yes.
And that voice, I would like him to just record for all of us. It's time to wake up. It is 5:30. Your alarm's going off. Please wake up. I have to make that voice come out of my mouth and talk this way. DC just does it every day.
It's literally my walking around voice. Yeah. I just throw a little more vibrato for the camera.
Like, listen, I saw these tomatoes. That back there says it's $1.99. That just rang up at $2.99. Can we have a conversation about this? Please go get your manager.
I will go. I'll have a deep voice. Like people, hey, how's it going? And I can throw that out there theatrically and stuff. But DC comes much more natural.
Yeah, like it definitely. I mean, and DC, we appreciate you. What's can we get? I still got to do the housekeeping, and I know I got to do it. We'll do it here in a minute. But while we're here, DC, what do we got? Can you hint at anything being broke this week?
Oh, yeah, actually, I can tell you a lot about what's being broke this week. For all my military fans and my fans of G.I. Joe, we still have the Jamie Sullivan original art that came from the record-breaking cover of G.I. Joe 300. That is an amazing thing that we have. We have some interesting presidential memorabilia made by a company called Super Breaks as well that we have. But if you're into the big original art, we have a sketch cover break that has just absolute knockout art on it. Another one, you are familiar with one we did before. We did another one that's just bang up. And then we raided our dear friend Doug's archives and vault. And we have a run of original art that was originally his that we've kind of stolen and are giving it to the masses.
Yeah, they're going through this, and I'm like, no, I can't give it back. And then we had to traded pieces out. It was agonizing. Yeah. But there are 25 or 27 boxes in that run. And then tonight, I know we're going to be teasing. Last week, you teased another sketch cover break that we were doing with an artist. That's all sort of Funko-based art. Artist does comic book covers, but the characters are done like in the Funko style, the bigger head. And we work today. We're pairing those up with Funkos. The one you are going to be talking about tonight that we're going to make live for preview is
going to be our Art from the Heart. It is a Valentine's Day-esque box that is going to have a little bit of candy, a lot of really great art by Paul Maitland, a very accomplished artist out on the East Coast. And it may or may not also feature an autographed Valentine from each of us, Doug, Trevor, and I.
Yeah.
I can't confirm or deny, but there might be some hand-on notes for everybody, too.
We did at the holiday. Remember, we had a holiday break. It's sort of a thematic, seasonal type thing. So we're continuing it. We did Halloween, we did Christmas. Now we're doing Valentine's Day Art from the Heart that features paired characters, all your favorite lovebirds and best friends. We've got Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. We've got the Maitlands from Beetlejuice, Superman and Lois Lane. A lot of great pieces in there. Each box has a sketch card, and then there are, I think, 7 or 8 hits in that box of
really that many hits.
Yeah. So we're trying to, spread the love. We want you to say, be mine to these Valentine themed boxes, and you're going to love it.
I think I might have to get one for my wife. And I got to go through this here real quick. We've got some great notes popping up. So Ice Wolf, and look, folks, if this is your first time you're finding us through DCD Collects, please make sure you give us a follow. Follow if you're finding them for the first time through us. Make sure you're giving them a follow. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook. Everything is DCD Collects. The website is DCD Collects. If you're watching the live, it's scrolling along the bottom. But real quick, Nathan's already ready for the football talk. Nathan, Doug and I always end up in a big football conversation.
Yeah.
But he did have a good question here. Any Thundercats?
Not in this break, but we are working on a Saturday morning cartoons break, upcoming future. It's not quite close, but we do have that coming, and Thundercats are part of that. In fact, I have a Masters of the Universe backpack that's sort of a hit in there. It came with the pop. It's from Hot Topic, a limited edition. No, Loungefly, not Hot Topic. So we're constantly working. Today we actually built 5 or 6 breaks, and we have constantly 10 or so in the works for the next few months. So there's always something going on.
And I think we kind of made a mistake, and I got to, and we should have done this before. I don't care which one of you does it. If we want to do it in our best announcer, maybe we should each try to do this in our best announcer voice. We could each try, okay. But please, if you could, pay your attention over this way and tell us what exactly is a breaker box.
I'm going to let the breaker
come on, DC.
DC, tell them what the breaker box is.
All right, everybody. So breaking boxes is absolutely phenomenal. What you're going to get is a box. You have no idea what's in it. And each one of them tend to be thematic, meaning you know generally what could be inside, but you don't know exactly what there is. There's going to be original art, sometimes very famous autographs, sometimes both. all together in one place for fun, opened live for your entertainment by this voice and these fingers. Thankfully, my head is shrunk very small, so you don't have to look at my face. So I voice and hands over face.
Every box will have our preference is to have original art. Yep. And then every third, fourth, fifth box, depending on the run, will have larger redemptions inside. So you're going to get, say, a sketch card or a 4x6, and then every randomized box will have a redemption for a larger piece. You might get a 4x6 in a box, and then there'll be a 9x12 in there, sometimes bigger. We're working on a mythology box that has a lot of good variety. Ooh. So it's really, we try to do something thematic. We want artists to kind of feel something they're enjoying. We say mythology, go to town, like just do what you want. And then we get the art, we build the boxes. We number them, DC numbers them on camera. We randomize them and then sell them in that order. It's all done online, with evidence. And so we are as transparent as possible throughout the entire process. I see the question about, do you have any Marvel themed boxes? Generally, our boxes are a little more base themed. We'll say heroes or villains. We might say we had like Claws Out, which was a Wolverine themed box. So quite often there will be Marvel characters in there, but we tended to kind of focus on a general theme and let the artists go with where they want on that.
I got one.
Let's hear it.
Brainstorm. You need to get Sean or Lee. They do the cards, the matchup cards, like the book and everything. Should do one DC and Marvel, but the parallels to characters. So if you have Superman on a card, his parallel, I would think, would be the Century.
Yeah.
So, you parallel them because they've all got that. You have Deadpool on
parallel universe.
Yeah.
There you go.
Different.
Yeah. Same, but different. Half the fun for this is coming up with names.
Same.
We did have verses.
Multiverse.
We had verses, which were, a famous good guy versus a famous bad guy. We had duos, which was like, Batman and Robin and so forth. And so we're constantly coming up with new ideas for these themes. We've got everything. We've got, as DC mentioned, this incredible G.I. Joe box called 300. G.I. Joe, finished their main run at 300. And then Jay Sullivan, the cover artist, did 316 different characters individually and worked them into the comic book. And therefore, and actually there's a poster over there if you want to pull one out. It is a record-breaking comic book. And so we actually bought a lot of original art from there. And you actually have a chance of getting some of the characters from this. And so you'll see, like,
for those of you that don't see this, that are listening to the podcast afterwards, this is a poster with all 316 of the G.I. Joe characters that were created on one poster.
And so, you've got, of course, the main hit that we have, you're going to get a chance. You could get both Duke and Cobra Commander. But there's also, we've got Destro, Baroness, Scarlet. We've got, I think Deep Six is in there.
Hint, wink, wink. I want Gung Ho.
You know what? I didn't get Gung Ho, but because somebody bought that. But I did get the original pencils for Gung Ho and gave them to this former guy, this former military guy here.
Mine was Shipwreck.
Shipwreck. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I do have Gung Ho. But there's Wild Bill. I think I bought 60 different characters.
Holy shit.
And so you're going to get them, and they each come with a letter of authenticity, an image of it. And actually each box also comes with the comic book signed by Jay Sullivan.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Vanna.
and Icewolf, I went and real quick and looked at that picture. You do have a serious beard. I'll have to introduce you to my buddies at the Talking Beards Network, which we've had those guys on, Scott Sikora and Aaron Johnson. And
we need a beard break. We need famous beards.
Well, you know what? That would be an awesome one. And those two guys would love to introduce you to them. They actually are competitive beard growers. Aaron is a world champion with a goatee that's over 2 feet long.
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty impressive. Now
I don't have that kind of energy.
Well, and Nate nails it. I do love Silverhawks. That's something Nate and I've been talking about. I guess Michael Bay recently came out and said he would like to do Thundercats and he would like to do Silverhawks. And I'm all about
it. Didn't Kaiser did a Silverhawks piece, didn't he?
The team up.
We had a team up piece.
That was the hit.
The hit was the Silverhawks.
No shit. I missed that. Oh, well, I already know who's got it. Bourbon has it.
Bourbon probably has it.
Bourbon has
but,
it.
Bourbon is legendary for many reasons, but we really do try to create boxes that at the very base we'd want to buy. Like we want to build things that we'd be comfortable buying. So we know that they are done with great value. They are done with great care and with ethics. We want people to know that we're trying to do this as above board as possible. The breaking business, more in the card world, has had some savory, seedy things happening. And so we try to be as transparent as possible. Boxes are numbered on camera. You can go back and follow the order. We don't say you buy a box, that's the one you're going to get. And, we deal with that in terms, hey, if all the hits go early, we deal with that. So it's just something we really try to build a business and follow a plan where we would want to buy them ourselves and we like to sleep well at night. That's what we try to do.
And I got to go. I think our friend from My Arc It, which is a phenomenal product. If you haven't seen it, he was on a couple of weeks back where instead of like, if you have Google and you save pictures to it after 2 years and you don't touch it, Google will delete it. It's a service where you can actually go on there, upload pictures, and they never go away. Wow. You permanently pay one fee. They're saved, memories and everything. But I like this. This is an adult cartoon themed box. People like Peach Wizard and Fat Freddy Cat.
Sure. Heavy metal. You can go all the way back to heavy metal for adult comics, and not even necessarily, risque, but there are,
they're adult themed. They're adult themed.
One of the things we also really try to do within our chats, and you've been in our chats in our rooms, we try to be family friendly, which doesn't mean we're not doing things that are adult-ish, but we're very much about community. So it's language, it's attitudes,
controlled.
And DC does such a great job of making that family feeling. We want people to come to us believing in the community, being proud. He
adopted DC. He moved all the way to California.
Actually true. Yeah.
Yeah. He's my son.
Yep.
So it's
have taxes on him and everything.
Yeah. I get the discount, the refunds and everything. It's been wonderful.
And Nate wants to know what your Saturday morning cartoon go-to food was.
Saturday morning cartoon food.
Like for me, it was peanut butter. I like the peanut butter Captain Crunch, but you gotta get it before it hits mush.
Yeah,
hits terminal mush and it's done. I can't mess with it.
DC,
it was cereal. It was also cereal.
Yeah.
But Lucky Charms.
And
I would save all of the marshmallows till the end, and eat all the marshmallows at the end to get that sugar buzz for the rest of the morning.
My teeth are bothering me just based on that because I hate that styrofoam marshmallow.
Yeah. No, I got to tell you, Saturday mornings, I would sit there and I had two cereals I would rotate. Count Chocula. I liked Count Chocula, but my all-time favorite Saturday morning cartoon food is Cookie Crisp. I love Cookie Crisp.
Now, this kind of brings up a great subject, though. And I want to get into this for a minute. We're going to make a left turn into this collecting for a minute. We'll get to sports because we always end up in sports at some point. But do you think that there's something missing for kids today with not having that limited Saturday morning cartoon? Like, I love the fact that Cartoon Network is there and brings back all the older stuff. But and it's actually two questions because I got a follow up to this, but that, they're losing that because I used to love, do you remember that just before the cartoons came out for that fall season, they would do an episode on Saturday morning. It lasted almost all morning where they would advertise coming up this Saturday at 8:00. It's going to be Heathcliff, and it would be Heathcliff running around, and then they would show the other new ones. Do you remember that?
So, essentially when in the 70s and 80s, Saturday morning cartoons were a lot like Thursday night must-see TV, right?
Absolutely.
Like you planned your week around it. And we didn't have the access. We only had fewer channels. So Saturday morning was the kids' time. And you would sit there and you would watch Thundercats. And then there'd be the Schoolhouse Rocks intermittently.
Do you remember Kid Video?
Kid Video, all of those. And that was really like the time you waited for. Like you woke up early so you could watch as many of the cartoons. Now in California, Popeye was big because we had a guy named Tom Hatton, and he would be the host of sort of a Saturday morning thing, and he would famous for he wore his little hat and he'd doodle. Kids would send him in doodles, and he would take that doodle and draw pictures out of them and send it back. And so it was kind of a cool Saturday morning thing to do. But it's one of those things where that was what we looked forward to all week. And you would school was done. You didn't have homework. I'm going to wake up early. You're eating your Saturday morning food, whether it be Lucky Charms, Twix, whatever, tricks. And you would sit there and you would be there from 7 a.m. till 11 o'clock when you had to really go do something.
Right.
But to bring it into the world of collecting, that is nostalgia, right? Like I see Nathan here saying good times brings back memories. We think of those in such fond terms, and we now thirst for those kinds of things that bring back those memories. So like the Saturday morning cartoon run, the cartoons have all made a comeback. I think we're in the 50th anniversary now of Schoolhouse Rocks. I think they're going to be doing a special soon on that. But we're all now at an age where those memories come back. We have the desire to go back and think about those really positive memories and sitting there wrapped in a blanket, eating your cereal, watching those cartoons, Thundercats, and G-Force was one I remember.
Oh, G-Force was great.
Love G-Force.
Now, Kristen brings up Speed Racer. I remember
Speed
Racer as the first cartoon that I can remember as a kid that had a storyline that you needed to watch Speed Racer because you were like, who's Racer X? Holy crap. Racer X is his brother. Yeah. Oh my God. And there was this whole storyline that went along with it. Loved all those. Or
it's nostalgia. I mean, we go back and we have such fond memories, and what we're really trying to do is connect with that. We have a break coming up on Cars, right? Think about all the movies and TV shows you've watched that have had a car somewhat featured in there. For me, it was Kit. I loved Knight Rider. And I have this memory of being 10 years old going to Universal Studios here in Hollywood, where they had Kit, one of the cars, and you got in and it said, "Hello, Doug. How are you today?" And I lost it. Like, that was the most amazing thing to me. And I mean, now I know my dad had given them my name and stuff, but like that was so fun. And you think about Kit and you think about the Love Bug. Remember watching Herbie the Love Bug? I mean, there's all these things.
The cars are amazing.
So now when we have these boxes, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to get the Wayne's World car where they sang the song, or I want to get John Wick, or I want to get all the, talk about Batmobiles, right? I mean, there's so many different iterations of the Batmobile that they're all represented. So you're looking for these things that give you a positive feeling. That's what really we're trying to do, is make you feel good. The DeLorean, we have a DeLorean in the break.
See, I'm the odd kid out. I was the odd kid out. You know what? You're going through all those. I love Kit, the van from A-Team, all those kind of things. Do you know which one I also loved? was
Magnum PI. No, it's good. Let's hear it.
That's another great one.
Yeah.
The rig from BJ and the Bear.
BJ and the Bear. How about Smokey and the Bandit? How
Smokey
about
the Bandit? Yep.
all of that?
That was a 6x6. Did you know that's what made that car? That was just such an amazing, amazing car.
And so these things bring you back, right? They take you back to your childhood, these fond memories. And that's what we're really trying to do, because collecting is so much about connecting. You and I have had this conversation.
100.
Those memories come back. You're holding the artwork. And that's where DC is so good, because he is so well versed in so many things of pop culture. The political stuff that we do, the comic book stuff that we do, the pop culture stuff. He hits it all. The Mystery Machine, that's so iconic. We talk about things that are iconic. There is the Munsters mobile is in this break as well. So
I'm going to flip it for a second.
Yep.
Do you have HBO Max?
Yep.
Sitting down the other day with my 5-year-old who likes Scooby-Doo.
Sure.
I like Scooby-Doo. Have you seen Velma?
DC's walking away.
As well, you should, DC. I think it's bullshit. I would
too. It is so depressing. We went from a great cartoon to what was her name that played Velma in the movie? She was great.
She's
I know
you're
no, but she was she plays what was her name? She was great. And it seems like we've sort of devolved into our Velma and Daphne's and so forth.
Right. We're watching it, and I'm sitting with my 5-year-old and my 29-year-old, and we're watching the first 5 minutes, and I'm like, all right, this is her story. That's kind of cool. I get that. I'd like to hear her backstory. And then she goes, Fred didn't come up with this with his sexual vehicle. And I'm like, or no, sex machine. That's what and I went off.
Yeah.
Like, not for my 5-year-old.
No.
What is going on here? And I had to go back and look to see what was going on. And I think we're all of the same mindset. How do you feel about them taking what should be innocence and sharing this with our kids? And then for some, and I get the girl who's on TikTok who wants to dress like that and say, fine. Hopefully that algorithm doesn't pop for my 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Watching. But how do you feel about them taking and overly sexualizing things that really shouldn't be? That it's really that's a level of creeper that's special to me.
It is. And it's this really interesting world where there are people who feel like anybody, whatever age, should have the right to see and do whatever they want. And you see that with schools going to drag shows, and not to even get into the political world of it all, but you see these things where there are those who feel like kids should be allowed to think, feel, see whatever they want. And then you've got people who often, when it's their own, will see something like a 5-year-old on TikTok with his parent who's sitting there with his shirt off, and that's considered too adult and is then stopped, right? And so
what Doug is referring to. We do the pre-show on TikTok. My 5-year-old, who we were at wrestling in high school style wrestling, was there and loves to get on the videos with me. Didn't have his shirt on and was talking about whatever. And all of a sudden, TikTok kicks us off and goes, minor sexual content, minor sexual exploitation.
Yeah.
And I'm reading it. I'm like, you scumbags. Why would somebody even think this about my child who's sitting here on my lap talking about wrestling and all you absolute scumbags? Why would you think that about a child?
Context. But to go back to your question, I think there are the things, the idea of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Absolutely.
Right. And you try to teach that to your own children and my children, but it's like people are pushing the envelope, and we've really come into the, no bad press is still good press kind of thing. But it's frustrating. DC and I were having lunch today talking about cartoons that were still fun and amusing. And you were talking about Bluey, which I've not seen Bluey. My kids are older, but I've only heard good things about Bluey. Everything I've heard about Velma has been negative. And it's so hard when you've got something that is beloved by so many, and then you try to redo it for the modern era. Doesn't always work, but as someone said before, Wednesday on Netflix, that really struck an amazing tone with someone who respected the original and was not, I mean, not so much a homage, but they were really respecting it and taking it and taking one character and making her the lead. But really the Wednesday and the modern one is not much different from more the Wednesday in the movies with Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
But to a point where it's certainly very respectful of what it was doing before, and yet it is advancing it in a way that everybody can embrace. It's a great show. She's wonderful. You have seen a lot of these shows where they took, I remember Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I thought Sabrina was great.
But I've not seen the modern one. I love the original.
See, and I felt like that was okay, because if you were to read any of the new stuff about Sabrina, they did a run called oh God, not Arthur. God, what the heck? Because she's from what's the name of it? Archie in the Afterlife, or Archie in the Afterlife, which was a dark Archie where the zombie apocalypse happens in the Archie world, and the big saving grace was Sabrina coming from the town over. And so I was completely okay with it. I was like, okay, I know where the storyline is going with this.
Yeah. I've not seen the new one, but do they have the cat that talks? Because that was the best part of the original.
So he doesn't talk in this one, but he communicates with her. You just don't hear a voice.
All right.
But
the cat was and I enjoyed the first one, but the cat was the best part of that show. If you someone who had a big crush on Melissa Joan Hart, but the cat was great.
If you go back and you watch that the series on Netflix, they still pay. You talking about an homage? They actually bring back the original ants, and a cat, because she goes through. I'll spoil it if you haven't seen it by now. It's only been done for a couple of years, and she goes through like a dimensional door and ends up in that world with them and with a talking cat. And she is the Sabrina for that world now, because she shows up. They did a phenomenal job about it.
And it's great. And it's possible, right? I mean, it seems like for the Velma one, have you seen it?
Yeah.
That they just decided they were going to make it as woke and modern and relevant without really thinking about the history and respecting all that. It's unlike those other shows which moved things forward into the modern era, but in a way that still kept it near and dear to the original.
I expected her to be popping pills and doing a bump of coke off of a Scooby-Doo's ass. What the hell's this?
I think and I gotta also just say this in jet, because I gotta get ready for my show. The intention wasn't to bomb Doug, not on purpose. I think what they were trying to do is, it was basically animated virtue signaling. Was what this is.
Animated what?
Animated virtue signaling.
What is that?
Basically, virtue signaling would be the best way to explain it.
That we are understanding, and we understand you, and we are trying to represent you, the modern person, and it's just kind of like tokenism in a sense, like we got you covered, and that's more important than the story and the history.
It was like
being represented is more important than making it relevant and real,
and also doing it without somebody asking you to do it. Just volunteering. Oh, I'm sticking up for this person without that person saying stick up for me. It's just like, we're putting this out there so you know what we stand for. And it's like, well, nobody asked you what you stand for. But thanks.
That sounds like a breaker box to me. I'm just
Murph, listen, buddy, I love you. We will get together. I promise. I got to jet over, get ready for my show.
There's a lot of traffic. He's got to get over. We're Southern California, man. Traffic is exhausting. In fact, if he's over there, I can throw things and hit the wall and make a noise on that one.
That's even more fun. We'll make sure that we try to push our traffic to you after it's done, though, like not before then. When we're done.
Yeah,
that's we gotta finish. And look, Kristen, and I have to introduce you. So Kristen is my California political contact. She's like highly involved, like up in Orange and all those places and all those people. But I agree with her. Yes, but what about respecting children and family content? That's lost. I have to agree with you. But now the other side to it, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for my own question. My kids have PBS Kids now as an entire app that we never had with phenomenal content. My 5-year-old doesn't like Bluey. He thinks it's boring.
Sure.
But what's funny is my 19-year-old was like, you should check this out. And my friend Tom, who sent me the other stuff, the Giants fan, who is a very progressive person, came to me and said, your kid should watch this because it is a very highly progressive show that has a lot of adult content for adults that are raising children to kind of be like, hey, I know you're raising a kid and you're dealing with X, but let's do this. Like my son was talking about, like there's an entire episode where Aunt whoever doesn't come over to visit because she can't have children herself, and seeing the sister with children causes her anxiety. And I'm like, bro, that's some of the deepest shit I've ever heard of on a kid's cartoon.
But here's where I will say, because I will defend the show. I am a father of a 7-year-old. A father of a 7-year-old. I'm married, and it's the way they present it.
Right.
Is in a way that we get it as adults, but kids may go, oh, and the way they approach it is not in a manner that it is direct or saying one thing is bad or another. It's saying these are the things that can happen. And by and large, while dealing with these adult type terms, they break it into such a low denominator for the children that the children, I'm not saying they're being directly told how to understand it, but it's easy for them to consume.
It's making it accessible.
It is. And by and large, the storylines do not have those really in-depth type things.
They're not the went after school special that we used to have to watch. They're a very special episode of Bluey. Remember those very special episodes? Family Ties, where I think it was Mallory was caught drinking. We had to, sit through all those episodes.
You were almost required as a sitcom at that time to have on this very special episode.
That's right.
Of Family Matters. We find out. Yeah, I love those. Those are great. Yeah. Like, where did those go?
We when we were kids, we watched those, but now we're all older, and we have fond memories of that, right? Like we would come home and watch those where you're like, kids were getting taken in vans, and you'd learn not to get into the vans with, it's
how did they
all
ruin
those things and the drugs and the smoking episodes and.
Oh, I love it.
I don't know what you guys talk about. Those vans with the free candy were awesome.
Like, but wasn't that
it's really how we got DC to come out west?
The best part is that we look back at those things like, hey, stranger danger, and then we find out as adults, like, hey, just so you know, the strangers were probably the one that was trying to help you and get you away.
Right?
He was trying that person was helping you. It was your dad's best friend, Uncle Jake, Uncle Frank. Like that was the one that was like. Now
I don't know. You have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. When my kids go to school, I have to fill out paperwork now. Oh yeah, only these people are allowed to pick them up.
Absolutely,
it's like myself, my wife, my mom, my sister. The limited range. It can't just be, hey, someone said your mom needed you to get picked up. We can't do that anymore.
I have to buzz in. So I was at my kid's school. I drop him off in the morning and pick him up. I hit a doorbell. They come to the door even before and after. For after school, I can get him. But before school, they're like, no.
Yeah.
We'll take him from here. And I'm like, okay. But you know what? All this kind of feeds as we're talking about. These are collections. These are things. These are processes. The other side to collecting, DC, we love you, brother. Hey, folks, check out DCD Collects, DC the Breaker. He's on Instagram as DC the Breaker. Check
All right,
him
now
out.
we can really talk. I mean, really, what a pain in the ass that
What
guy.
that son of a.
No, I got to tell you, you know, we are here at DCD Collects truly blessed, right?
Absolutely.
I've known Trevor, who you've seen on camera. I've known him 20 plus years. One of my dearest, bestest friends. And we have such a similar mindset on collecting, but also how we want to do things. And we met DC 3 or 4 years ago, and he had a very similar mindset. And so we have Lee Cosi, you know, he's one of our featured artists. And it is a group of guys who love what we do and really want to do it the right way. That is how we try to run our business. And we want to do things that we love, respect everything, and we want to sleep at night. Like, we want to go to bed knowing we were fair, ethical, we built good product, and we were happy about it. I mean, that we get to do what we love. We get to talk collecting. We get to work with artists. We get to go to Comic-Cons. We get to do all these great things. And still, it's kind of work, right? We wake up in the morning. I come up to Santa Barbara. You know, I get to work in this office where I have lots of cool stuff everywhere. And just talk to people about collecting. What a great life that really is.
It really is. And but you know what that feeds into our other topic was, what's the difference between good and bad collecting? And when I say that, you know, that I you know, if you were to come into my basement and I grab some stuff that's over here next to me, I love CGC books. And if you don't know what that CGC is, that's a graded comic book.
Yep.
I mean, look at that cover. You know that cover.
Enter the Watcher.
You know, you got Enter the Watcher. I've got Silver Surfer #1 over here, Shield #1, CGC books. I love those. But that to me is how I collect. But you can walk through my house. I don't have storage units, and I don't have anything against people who do. But I'm going to give you my definition. I'm curious of your definition, Doug, of bad collecting. And I make it real simple. Bad collecting to me is you can't pay your bills.
Yeah.
If you've gotten to the point where your collection means more than paying your bills, like, I've got to go get this thing. And I have to watch myself. We talked about recently from Skybound. You and I talked about that. Skybound has a box right now, which I've got a couple of the books in here that, I'll be honest, man, it's not really a breaker box, but I guess it's kind of a breaker because you don't know what's in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, Skybound X at a 9.8, amazing cover. This is the creature that, if you read, what's the one that they just did? Invincible. This is the tiger creature that whoops Invincible's ass at the beginning of the show. But it's $200.
Yeah.
There's 4 CGC books in there. One of them is guaranteed to be an autographed, you know, gold seal CGC. Guy like me, that's got my neck itching like crap.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, so you got some more of them boxes? What you got in them boxes?
You know, and look, bad collecting is really anything that does not make sense or does not work, right? And you say it in terms of like money, like,
right.
You know, if you're buying something and you're rather than getting your necessities, you know, getting medicine, getting food, paying rent, that's more obsessive than anything. But bad collecting, I think, is often speculators masquerading as collectors, right? And so it's this idea of, I'm collecting, but I'm going to buy to make money or as an investment. And I'm not saying that's wrong to do. You need that. You need people feeling like there's monetary value to it in order to properly give it value. I mean, if you are buying things and you see people flipping, that means there's interest, and we get that.
Right.
But bad collecting is collecting for the wrong reasons, collecting outside of your means, and collecting that is maybe not respectful.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, in the sports world, there's quite often people. There was an auction house that tried to auction off parts of Roberto Clemente's airplane that crashed, right?
No.
And
wow,
and,
it'd be like Kobe, the helicopter from Kobe's crash. Like
the helicopter from Kobe's crash. Say James Dean's car. Any of these things.
That's
Paul. Who was the guy from Fast and the Furious?
Paul Walker.
Yeah, Paul Walker. That parts of that car. To me, those are things that are distasteful. But I had this conversation a while back with some of the museums that I work with. What are the ethical implications of collecting something? And this really came into, how do you collect, say, a political movement? How do you collect, for example, Black Lives Matter in a way that tells the entire story
in a respectful manner?
That shows all sides, and they may still be wrong sides, right? But in a way that says, hey, this did happen. And we've seen this in the last 10 years where a lot of people want to, rather than discuss history, it's just easier to eliminate it, getting rid of statues or hiding things. But there are really ethical implications of collecting, because particularly in the museum world.
Oh, absolutely.
You are telling a story, and 20 years from now, how do you know you're telling that story appropriately, authentically?
Well, the museum piece, you bring up a great point. I've told this on the air before. I was the kid at age 16, for my 16th birthday. I wasn't looking for a party. I wasn't looking to hang out with a bunch of people. I wanted to go to the museum with my mom.
You're like me, man.
Because at that time, they had the Warner Brothers Cell exhibit that was going around the country, and you could see, and you could actually purchase. I didn't have the money, and my mom didn't have the money at the time, but you could purchase original cells from Warner Brothers cartoons. Now, if you go to Disney, they've got a billion of things. They're everywhere. But you bring up a great point with museums and ethical collecting. Would you consider museums as an unethical collecting place? And here's what I mean by that. You go to museums in England, they have tons of Egyptian memorabilia.
Sure. The Parthenon, the bronzes you see now, and then the mosaics and the stuff from the Parthenon. They're currently in negotiations to send back to Greece. I'm with you.
Right. And that's what I was about to say is, should those things, should it even be a conversation? Because it's such a weird spot for me. Like, on one hand, I'm like, you do realize that at that point, they were the boss. So
the Ottoman Empire at the time sold those to England.
Right.
Back when that happened. Yeah.
It wasn't shit you could do about it. Somebody sold that shit off. And then the other side to it, though, is, hey, that's a whole country's history, a global history that should be where it started at. Because I really think museums are like the most difficult ethical place when it comes to collecting to me.
I would probably, if I had to choose one side or the other, I would prefer items go back to where they were from.
And why?
Because to me, that is the best way. I mean, and they are your culture, your history, and I think your history should be your own. But is that always possible? I mean, were things acquired legally? If something was sold appropriately to someone and they now have it, do you have the right to ask for it back? I know particularly the British Museum is trying to negotiate terms of, rotation, where we don't send them all back to you, but we certainly have a few here at a time, and when they're a pain in the butt to move. But
I can't imagine.
Also you have the discussion of who can best tell that story. is that worthwhile? You know, are people going to see them in some place? You know, and say it's a piece from Ghana. You know, are they going to be able to have that story told? It's a much different sort of, say you're talking about the looted art during World War II.
Oh, that's a monster.
That's like easy, right? That's an easy mindset. But you're talking about pieces that weren't necessarily looted, were maybe sold by the country in charge at the time, right? And so you have,
or even gifted, even gifted.
But you've got context, and that's where you and I were talking before the show. Context is gone, right? It's just linear. It's right or wrong. There's no in between, and there's. It's sad that's in the political world, and it's in the art world, and the show. Work together and solve these. How can we make things worthwhile? Now, if it's something was looted, you see a lot of that with Egyptian artifacts.
Yeah,
those were just looted. And right now, Egypt has really been working getting all those back because they're opening the Cairo Museum, which is the largest single subject museum in the world. I think 4 or 5 years ago, there was a Great King Tut exhibit touring, and it said, hey, this is the last time this will be in the U.S. This is all going to be going back to the museum, and it's never leaving again.
I thought the Tutankhamun stuff was in England.
It was originally in England. So
it
was found by the guy who the family from Highclere Castle, you know, the Downton Abbey people. They hired Howard Carter, and Howard Carter found it. And originally it all went to the basement of Highclere Castle. And if you actually go to the castle today to do the tour, they have recreations of all that and how it was.
Well, and go ahead and tell the story, Doug. Say his name again? Who was it that actually found it?
Howard Carter.
And what did you used to have?
Oh, my Howard Carter cartouche signed piece, which actually is in my vault. And the next time we talk, I'll try to have some of that stuff.
I've yet to see that. I've yet to see it. But that's owned though. You know, it's made its way back to Cairo for that exhibit. And I don't know any of the specifics on that, but I know they have been more than a lot of countries been going after items that were taken harder. I know Madagascar and China have now really shut down their export on fossils, minerals. Oh, really?
And so forth. They really are trying to keep that in-house, really. So the ethical implications of bad collecting would be something maybe illegal. You know, you're stealing things. You know, you go back to, say, the Thomas Crown affair, where, you know, you're stealing artwork. There are so many ways collecting can be bad, and we really try to focus on what is good about collecting, right? It ties you to something. It brings you into a group. I mean, I've given lectures on why is collecting a great thing for kids, right? What do you learn from it? Interpersonal skills, bartering skills, research, organization. You know, how do you deal with people? It's such an important thing, and we learn so much from it. That's good collecting. And collecting isn't necessarily about value. It's about what you're getting out of it. And so a kid collecting Pokemon cards or comic books or say decks of cards from hotels or casinos, or I know someone who I take a pen when I go to a hotel. Now they leave them there, and but it's just one of those things. The value is irrelevant. But I go,
memory.
It's memory. We're connecting to that. Like, I was just in Seattle and took a pen, and I enjoy those things. It's collecting for the right reasons versus the wrong reasons is really what I think it comes down to. And I've never dealt with a haunted collection.
I was about to throw that up
below.
Nate is all about the haunted. He's actually just got in with he started learning paranormal investigation, and he's working with Paranormal Funhouse, which is going to be on the show in April. So he's definitely all about.
I not to say now we had a Halloween break.
Doug. I could not ever see you with a haunted collection. You remind me of myself, where you'd be like, you can put that shit in the parking lot. It's not coming in this building. We're not playing with this. We don't play with this stuff. Leave that voodoo shit right where it's at.
I'm basically Scully from the X-Files, and Nathan is Spooky Mulder.
He 100%. Yes.
100%. I have not. We did a Halloween themed, monster themed break a couple months ago. That might have been the closest we've ever come to that, but it is definitely collectible, and that goes into the people who collect things from, say, mass murderers, from famous scenes, and it's people collect a lot of things. And if you look around the world, you go to weird places, there's always going to be tiny museums dedicated to a lot of things. There's a museum in Europe that is literally a 10 by 10 room, and it's a museum of rubber ducks, like the little mini character ducks.
Really?
That's it. And there you go. It's 10 by 10, probably not even that big. People will collect anything. And there are people but why do they collect haunted? That's a great question. Maybe they saw something or something happened to them as a child, and so they have an affinity for that. Maybe they enjoy some people like horror films, and I don't. But some people like that feeling. Maybe they're out there looking for those kinds of things. There are people who collect Bigfoot, right? Sasquatch, Yeti, the whole concept of cryptids. That's, all the kind of spooky things out there.
That would be fun.
Yeah, it's something we've talked about. We literally have a list of like 40 different items for future breaks, and we're constantly coming up with things. But the why people collect something is really a great question that ties into the difference in good and bad collecting.
I think absolutely. And Patty's out there. We could introduce you to Patty. Patty would be fun. So Patty's out there. Patty Negri. She's like a big paranormal investigator. Has her own network and everything. She's out there in Cali with you. Y'all can't get me to Cali, just so you know. Like, I'll go to Cali. Yeah. But right now, you guys. You go from one extreme, from either the place is on fire, the bed sheets are soaked, to now everything's the mudslides.
And they're all here in Santa Barbara. We've had all of those. Our reservoir here in Santa Barbara went from 40%, and then as of like Tuesday, it was at 91%.
That's insane.
We had some places the reservoir rose almost like 40 feet. Santa Barbara had somewhere in the 15, 16 inches of rain in the mountains. I live a little south of here now. I'm in Thousand Oaks, California, where we got a good 6 or 7 inches. Now, so it's so funny. Ground moves too much for me. So I lived on the East Coast, right? I lived in Maryland. And whenever I said I was from California, people always said, how could you live there with all those earthquakes? Like literally we were having them every day. Daily, these massive ones. And if you ever saw the movie LA Story with Steve Martin, there's that great scene where they're having coffee and ordering drinks and the ground is shaking. And the woman from London's like having a coronary and everybody else in LA is just going on with their lives. That's what people think it is. And then I remember, so they'd ask about earthquakes, and then I'd be like, okay, what about the blizzards and the hurricanes and the ice storm and the humidity and the giant bugs? And California, man, we don't have giant bugs or humidity.
What? How do you have giant bugs in California?
I don't know. But it's ground moves too much. Now, are there probably earthquakes every day? Yes. 99% of them you don't feel. I mean, they're small, and we are built as a state. We have the best building codes in the country. Our stuff is solid. I remember being in Maryland and there was a 4.0, which we don't even think about. In Maryland, like they evacuated all their buildings and like chairs had fallen over and people were like, that's just like a truck driving by. I mean, we're used to that.
Yeah, no, like when you were in Maryland, that's shutting shit down. That we are shutting it down. And
I mean, blizzards and ice storms and I didn't even know until I moved to Maryland. I'd never even had a snow day. I didn't even know you could delay school due to weather. Like that was such a foreign concept to me. I remember going, I'm like, what? What's a 2-hour delay? Like
we had one
the
today.
only time I had ever missed school because of weather was because the Santa Ana winds had started a fire and the air was so bad they just shut the school down. That was the only time I had ever missed school due to a weather-related thing. I didn't even know you could like miss school for a snow day or a 2-hour delay. That was foreign to me.
Bro, we had a 2-hour delay this morning because of ice. Because it had rained. It had rained earlier, and we started getting like a pretty good sheet of ice to the point like our back porch. You come out the back porch, and you got to kind of walk up to our driveway. It's a slant. So I had to salt it last night. Couldn't even walk the dog because there was so much ice out there.
So DC moved out here, and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking. Do I need to put like undercoat my car?" And we're like, "No, cars last forever out here. We don't salt your car. We don't salt the roads or anything. Cars last here. Seafood is better here." Now I think that's debatable on where you are.
That's a tough one, Nate. That's a tough.
That depends on where you are. We do have wonderful seafood here. In California. We are on. If you're talking about, I think that is debatable depending on where you are and what you're talking about. We do have wonderful seafood, great ethnic food out here in California. So it's debatable. And I think you will find where you grow up is where you are partial to, and where, again, you have fond memories of something. And that is nostalgia.
Well, that's collecting those. Like I would love, and I've thought about this recently. So, we talked about the G.I. Joe stuff that you guys have and that big break that's coming up. I couldn't tell you how many 12-inch Marine G.I. Joes. I have a huge collection of 12-inch Marine G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
Window boxes. If you don't know what a window box is, that means it's actually like the box itself. Looked like a window looking into a scene.
Had a complete run collection when we had the full museum going. It's beautiful.
I've got all those things. Like I said, I mean, I've got sitting next to me of my CGC books. I probably have 10 of my CGC books. And some of them, when they come back, I look at it and I go, I probably spent almost as much to get it CGC'd as the book is valued, but it doesn't matter to me because I love just having that book in that perfect blocked condition.
Yeah, from a baseball card guy, I understood grading more than I did in the comic book world. Comic books to me were meant to be opened and read, and so in my mind, I have a harder time seeing it. Now I get it, and it's they're safer and they keep. I get it, but from a baseball card, you turn it over,
you still get all the stats.
You get everything you need. But a comic book, it's the first appearance of a character, but that might not be on the cover. So all of a sudden, I've got this great book, but I can't open it to see. Now, I understand grading and understand the reasons behind it clearly, but I have a harder time in the comic book world than I do in the card world.
So I'll give it to you, though. So we'll talk about this for a little bit. And this is why, if you're hanging out with Doug and I, make sure you're checking out DCDcollects.com. See what's out
live
there.
Right now, actually.
I know. I just got the notification that DC was live. I was trying to shut his feed down, but I couldn't get his feed shut down. I'm like, how dare he? But here's an example. So in my hand, look at that.
Yeah.
That's Submariner #1.
Yeah.
At a 7.0. So if some people might say, well, who cares? It's 7.0 out of 10. It's not perfect. Yeah, this book was made in May of 1968.
Yeah.
And is maintained a pretty high grade. But what I love about this and what I love about these books, and I know what you mean, they do a great job, CGC, and I'll boast them for a minute. Yeah. Roy Thomas's story, John Buscema and Frank Guccia art on the front.
Absolutely.
It tells you, Iron Man and Submariner #1.
Why it's important, comic book.
Everything. But you know what I love? This is my favorite part, is I flip these over.
Yeah.
On the back. Make money, get prizes with fast-selling American seeds.
Yeah.
And you read through hey, I could sell these seed packets, get damn near nothing for them. And the best, extra 3,000 given away in our promptness contest. In addition to the contest and money, you'll earn selling seeds.
Yeah.
And you look at this and you're like, a guitar and amp, and it's got these 3 kids that you're like, these shit-ass kids didn't sell this stuff. I sell American.
But we have such fond memories.
Oh, it's so great.
Of those ads, right? And I remember ordering like the little Army Men sets or the airplane sets. Yeah. I loved that.
Do you remember in the 80s, like early 80s? And I wish I still had mine. My mom used to do this. So you used to be able to cut out the labels.
Yep.
The QR codes we would call, or not QR codes, but barcodes we would call them now.
Yep, barcodes.
And send them in. And there was a Superman and a Incredible Hulk dolls that you could only get by sending in for those things. And then they would mail them to you in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
Do you remember those?
Yeah. And, and today, over the years, they've become mythical, right? Like we all remember those ads, and some people did, and some people thought about it and want it. Now they're older. They have discretionary cash. And so they're looking to find things that they've either always wanted or they had as a child and are looking for that feeling again. And again, it's all that nostalgia. It's seeking out of things that gave you joy. And we see that comic books are an amazing collectible because unlike baseball cards, which very rarely have emotional connections to, unless they are a particular moment or there's a player whose story inspired you, say right. Jim Abbott. Comic books have stories that people can truly connect to. And so they may collect a character because that character was going through something that mirrored what they were going through, or a character storyline that was highly relevant. There's, just Tony Stark and alcoholism or whatever.
The devil in the bottle.
You can connect to a character and a storyline very easily. People can go to characters that maybe are representative. We see that with Miss Marvel, and we see that with Black Panther. They're like this representation where people are like, I love that story. I love that character. I feel like that character is me. I want to collect that.
Static Shock is another one.
That's harder in the sport card world. But you do have, I'm going to collect, say, Roger Maris because he was historically relevant. Or my dad's favorite player was Mickey Mantle, so I'm going to build that. Those kinds of things. Moments like, say, the Gibson home run or the, Bobby Thompson and those kinds of things. The Jeter flip to get the player out at home. The moments are really there, but comic books are different in that they have much more depth to them. And so we talk about, say, Submariner from, the 1960s.
Yeah.
That's, 70 years of cards, 60 years of cards. I'm sorry, of stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of time for people to connect to. I was once hanging out with Sean Astin, right? From and we were
good name drop.
He was signing autographs, and I was there kind of telling him what all the cosplayers were. But what he was so good is he was relevant to so many different groups, right?
Oh, God, yes.
So he had the guys like you and I who love sports.
Oh, yes.
He was relevant to kids because he was Special Agent Oso. He was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Was he Special Agent Oso?
He was Special Agent Oso. He was relevant to those of us who grew up in the 80s and Goonies, right? Goonies never say die.
Don't forget who his dad is. Don't forget his dad.
Well, and I'm going to get to that. He was relevant to those who remember his mom and dad, right? And he's also relevant to those people who were into fantasy. We've got, Lord of the Rings. And so people would come up to him and tell him about how his movies inspired them, connected, whether they be small people who Rudy inspired or kids who grew up learning about, how to live through the comic books, or a woman in tears talking to him about how the journey that Samwise and Frodo went on in Lord of the Rings, mirrored her and her cancer recovery. And so you can really bite into these stories. And that is really personal and emotional. And so you think about these stories of, say, going against the odds and say the hero journey. We talk about collecting. The hero journey goes all the way back into Greek myths, right? And they're still the same. Luke Skywalker is the hero journey, a goal, and there's a guide, and then there's a death, and you're learning and growing. And we see that and people really thirst for that. They're looking for depth, and comic books provide that, right? And so people are very personal about what they collect. I'm collecting this storyline or this character because it really matters to me. And in the world of book collecting, of course, people collect their favorite books, but collecting children's books is incredible because those mean a lot of something, mean a lot to people. I read X book to my child. My parents read this book to me, whether it be, Hippity Boppity, Peter Rabbit, Goodnight Moon, Curious George. Yes. Those books meant something, and I remember I was a teacher when the Harry Potter books came out, and all of a sudden reading was cool again. And you saw people carrying books around and going to midnight sales of Harry Potter. And then at the same time, the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out, and you saw people going back and holding on to those books, reading them again. And now those people who were, say, 14 in 1999 are now, 30 something, and then they're looking for those things that they remembered. And Harry Potter was is their Star Wars, right? Like, Star Wars changed our lives. Like, it really became such an overwhelming pop culture thing. Harry Potter was the same thing. And that how we view Star Wars is how a huge generation views Harry Potter. And even Lord of the Rings, the movies, those were so powerful. And those stories that are told, perseverance, leadership, friendship, they're universal, and people will connect to those. And so that's why they've become sort of universally popular and now ultimately highly collectible.
No, you nail it there, Doug. Every bit of that. And we're going to get ready to put a bow on this thing. I know you got to go check out what DC's doing, making sure he's not putting anything, sliding anything.
Last week, we weren't here, and he got a delivery of art that we were trying to keep hidden. And he's like, they're not here. I'm going to show it. And
nobody can stop me.
He's like, they're gone. They can't stop me. I was an hour away. So he's just like, I'm going to show you guys what we got coming in.
And their Twitch channel, your Twitch channel is DCD
Collects. We try to keep it very simple.
All the same.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, all that is just DCD Collects. It's very simple. DCD are my initials, Douglas Chad Dreier. And that DCD Collects came out of my business from 20 years ago when I was selling baseball cards on eBay, and I was DCD Sports. And we just shifted it to DCD Collects, and it's been a great kind of cover for everything.
Yep. See, and that's how I learn all those things. I listen to Doug. Doug's been doing this a lot longer than I had. And, I listen, keep it all the same thing. Nobody can ever change it. We're going to get ready to close the house up, but I got to ask Doug, is there anything new for you that you're collecting? Anything that you're like, because as we were talking about this, I thought about I would really like to collect some Maryland memorabilia. I think I would enjoy that, like Natty Bow.
Yeah. Thinking of Maryland, it's a lot of people don't know this, but Maryland, Fells Point area, that was the second largest immigration spot in the country behind Ellis Island.
I didn't know that.
The second largest was Maryland. That Inner Harbor area was where people went in. Maybe not Fells Point, but I remember drinking a lot at Fells Point. Well, but south of there was a great immigration entry point, and that was the second largest one in the country.
Well, my grandmother was from Sicily, and she ended up in Baltimore. So
yeah, and then you think about Maryland, you think about it's such a great state. You've got everything from Annapolis. You've got Edgar Allan Poe. You've got the Baltimore Colts. You've got the Ravens now. Nobody's a Ravens fan. I wouldn't worry about that.
Hey! Look right here.
Yeah, I see that now.
I got to look at that Rams jersey behind you. You can look at that big Ravens right there. Right there. Look at that.
But there's a great history to it, and so that is a really good reason to want to collect something. Is you want to learn more about it, right? You want to know more depth. You want to find out. You want to be able to connect with other people, and that'd be great. Unless you said Maryland is in Marilyn Monroe, and that's a whole other issue.
Whole other collection.
I know a guy
you have a dress, don't you have a dress?
I used to have the dress. I used to own the dress that she wore singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, that gorgeous fuchsia dress. I sold that ultimately to a great Marilyn Monroe collector. It went to the right home. I'm thrilled it's there.
Amazing, Doug.
And
absolutely amazing. You got the shit that comes out of your mouth, and you're like, you're talking about the top of the skull of Adolf Hitler that was used as an ashtray. And
this is from a dinner from a few weeks ago. This is just an Eric Dickerson signed football.
Just like he happened to
and if you look on the stream that DC's doing now, you're going to see behind him a 2-foot tall Eric Dickerson bobblehead that he gave us and signed for us.
So can I tell you? So I loved watching Eric Dickerson, but when Jamal Lewis almost broke his record, I wanted him to break his record more so. Like I wanted to see it as a Ravens fan because it was such a phenomenal season. The guy was a beast. I taught my son who played football to run like Jamal Lewis because I always remember Jamal talking about I never stopped my legs moving. That was that was the key to being an amazing running back. And I really thought he was going to break that. But Eric Dickerson pissed me off when they showed in that last game of the season and they showed Jamal and he didn't break the record, and Eric Dickerson just gloating. And I get it. It's still your
record still stands.
Your record still stands. And I think it will stand. And I personally think with the extended games that are going on, I think that even if someone breaks his record,
it'll have a different vibe to it.
It will. Like you've got to kind of say, yeah, you broke it, but you had 2 extra games to do it.
Yeah.
Like that's a totally different animal, in my opinion. It's like when you look at like Earl Campbell and when Earl Campbell was running, he had 2 less games.
Well, think about Aaron Judge breaking the record of Maris and having, another 6 games, right?
Yeah, it's just such a different animal. And look, that's collecting also, folks. That's understanding that asterisk next to it, being able to say like, yeah, you did it. But
I'm going to tell you one thing about Eric Dickerson. And I've had a chance to get to know him because our kids played football together. Eric Dickerson is genuinely, if you were there and you were talking to him,
right,
he would make you feel very comfortable that you're talking to him and be gracious with his time. And you would walk away going, wow,
what a nice guy.
Just had a great time talking to Eric Dickerson. He is gracious with friends and fans. He will sign autographs. He is a wonderful, like when we're sitting on the sideline and people come by, he's very respectful and pleasant. And I give him huge amounts of props for that because he's
still Eric
Dickerson, true legend. One of the greatest running backs of all time. And is, if you walk up and say, hey, Mr. Dickerson, I just want to say I was a big fan of yours. He would, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. What's your name? Oh, great. that is something you just see so rarely these days.
Absolutely.
That I'm a Rams fan. I grew up in Anaheim watching him. Jackie Slater is my favorite player of all time. I grew up in that era. I've become, but I was never a big Dickerson fan. I was a lineman guy, but now I have to say I am a fan because I've seen how he interacts, and I've seen.
You're a fan of the person.
I'm a fan of the person, and that really matters, and that leads to other collecting. People will collect something because they met somebody,
right? Yeah,
and that matters.
For you. So, I watched a video the other day. They were talking about the top 5 greatest running backs in NFL history.
Yeah,
and number 5 that was thrown in there. I was surprised when they threw it in, and then I listened to them, and I went, son of a bitch, they're right.
Yeah.
LaDainian Tomlinson.
Okay. I think there's a great argument for LaDainian Tomlinson as one of those top 5.
Top 5 ever.
Personally, I think we have forgotten how great Marshall Faulk was.
Marshall Faulk was fucking amazing.
And you, in today's NFL world, with his skill set, he'd still be good. He'd still be that good. He was incredible in that era. And I loved Marshall, watching him play and what he did, and 1,000 yards receiving and rushing and just domination. When you watch his highlight films, he was like Barry Sanders-esque in how he moved a lot. But the Rams have been blessed to have some good running backs, and I see Jonathan Ogden. I was a big Ogden fan. I like linemen. So you talk about like Anthony Munoz. You're talking about these guys. Andrew Whitworth is my current favorite player.
My shoulder.
I'm a huge Whitworth fan because of the person himself, like what he was able to do. We worked a little bit together on the Make-A-Wish Foundation stuff. He's a good dude, and I was so thrilled he got to go win a Super Bowl the same year he got the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Like, that, to me, you're done. You've done it. You've gotten the 2 greatest achievements someone can achieve in the NFL.
Yeah, Nate knows Ogden and knows his brother.
I'm a fan. I was living in Baltimore, in the 96 to 2000. I went to, the first Ravens games. We sponsored the Ravens, and I remember going to PSI Net.
Pissy Net
Stadium. Yeah.
I love Pissy Net Stadium. Like, really, folks?
Pissy Net. PSI, baby. And
there's a company that nobody knows who the fuck they are anymore.
I think vaguely, I remember having some Jonathan Ogden stuff. He was great. I'm a lineman guy. I love the unsung linemen. And so Ogden, those kind of guys, I'm a big fan. Those are what I love having on my wall.
They're big boys. So how often is DC doing these breaks?
So DC and DCD Collects streams live on Twitch through DCD Collects Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, usually running for a few hours. He will number boxes. He will randomize. He will tease stuff when we're not in town. He will break what you buy on our website, which is dcdcollects.com. You break it, he opens it, then we send it to you. It's very communal. We want you to come in, open it. It's kind of like being in a card shop with your friends. Murph, you've been there. It is a lot of fun. It's easy, kid-friendly, appropriate, and we just have a great time. It's like finding your tribe. I mean, I know kind of like when you and I talk, it works, and that's kind of the same idea.
And you brought up a great point that I wanted to bring up. And again, folks, check out DCD Collects. We're getting ready to close this up. Those of you that are sticking around with us late night at the bar tonight, we appreciate you. But one of the things,
hard to shut us up. That's the problem. You and I have a problem not talking.
We really do. Like I promise you that Doug and I, like, I'm sitting here going, fuck, I know Doug's got shit to do, and I know it's only like 4 p.m. in California.
It's 6:24, and I'm loving it, man. I look forward to this all the time.
But, one of the things that DC does and that Doug and Trevor have put together that I think is so impressive is I've watched stuff. So talk about what I've gotten out of some of these breaks. I've got comic book covers in the other room and stuff, but I have upstairs that I keep in my bedroom. I have the Jerry Rice jersey signature.
Yeah.
I have that. that was the big hit out of that box.
Yeah, that Super Breaks box. Yeah,
that Super Breaks. I personally have that. Which getting it from Bourbon, and look, you've heard us mention Bourbon. Just go fucking. You'll understand. The guy was born with a golden horseshoe up his ass, and I don't know how he gets the stuff he does, but that's an example. But I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting there watching a break, and DC's like, so we're getting ready now. In a moment, we're going to go ahead and break blah, blah, blah. And I'm going,
yeah,
I really like that stuff. And then I go right onto the website. I'll purchase it, and I'll send it. And before I can even send DC a message and go, hey, man, I just picked up one of those. He goes, Murph, just picked up one of these, blah, blah, blah.
I got to know, we just sold 4 boxes of Pieces of the Past Presidential Edition. These are the kind of those Super Breaks, all political themed. And we just got a fresh case delivered today. So those are now up. And he's going to be opening those. So I should probably head out soon and watch. But
definitely worth watching. So again, folks, if you're looking to collect, you're looking to get into collect. If you have questions about collecting, listen to me. I send Doug messages. I send Trevor messages. I buy things and I go, hey, this is what it is. Can you help me out? There are no 2 guys that I know, and go back and listen to our old episodes. If you want to understand old cigar cards and stuff like that, Doug knows them. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think Trevor knows the cigar cards better than you do.
Yeah, that's
his shit. He knows that shit.
Cards, that's it, like
he is on a different level with that, and it's a great story if you go back and find our older episodes, how they met through Doug's dad and how Trevor and all the cards and everything. And I would have loved to have known Doug's dad. I feel like he would have probably taken over this show because he sounded like the guy was like, oh, you've got one of those?
Yeah.
I've got 15 of those. Bitch, I've got them all.
Yeah, well,
Seems like he was that guy. He would have been a blast to have one. So make sure you're checking out DCD Collects. Make sure you're going on to DCDcollects.com. The Facebook, he needs more Facebook followers. He's got like 35. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're mostly Instagram, but really what I would just say is come be a part of our family. You don't have to be buying boxes. Just come hang out with us.
It's fun. Those guys like Ice Wolf and Bourbon. Lee, look, when Lee Corso jumps on.
Cosi, not Lee Corso. He's got the big things on. Lee Cosi is one of our great artists, Star Wars artist, and we have the artists in the chat. That's the cool thing. You can often see these things.
And what's Sean's last name? What's Sean's last name? He always ghoulish.
Sketch Ghoul Sean MacArthur. Another artist, Brian Kaiser Tillman is quite often there. Paul Maitland, Kevin P. West. A lot of these artists we work with, they come in and you pull their art and they're like, oh my gosh, I did that because of XYZ. Or that was the 3rd time I tried that card. But we're really, really trying to create these bonds, and our access to the artists are incredible. So
and I'll tell you, when you meet Lee, so Lee and I probably had a 30-45-minute chat at New York City Comic-Con 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was pre-COVID, so it probably was 2019. And we just chatted, and next thing I know, he's like, hey, you know this artwork at Camp Pendleton? I'm like, I was never at Pendleton. He was, my best friend Ken. And Ken's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I did that one. I did this one. I did that one. So if you're a Marine and you're listening to this, most of your murals.
Lee Cosi, that's our guy.
Lee did that stuff, and it's amazing. So make sure you check out DCD Collects. And look, again, if you're finding us through DCD Collects, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, our Facebook, our Instagram, everything, TikTok. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Our email is the Above the Bar podcast. I'm getting to this late. We normally do this at the top of the show. If you've got Doug and I just do, we start talking. Look, listen to me, folks. If Trevor was here also, this shit's going 3 hours and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, we need to do an epic stream on a Saturday or something where we're just all happening.
Look, oh God, I wish we could do Super Bowl Sunday.
And we got to get you to California because you got to hit San Diego Comic-Con with us one day.
I want to do SDCC. I've never done SDCC.
We have a booth. It's great.
My wife, we'll talk. Maybe I'll bring the RV, and my wife and I will do the cross country in the RV.
There you go.
All the way out. I love my RV. And we just got a corgi puppy. So no,
I bet that's adorable.
All of us will just head on out there. So make sure you're checking out DCD Collects. The big board behind me, as I forgot to do this at the top of the show. If you've got something you're supporting, you've got a collection, you've got a show, you've got anything you're supporting, reach out to me. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, email, TikTok. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Reach out to me. Let me know what you got going on. I'll give you the address where to send it. You send me a sticker. I put your sticker on the board. You get free advertisement for it. Yep. Sticker and a cause. It's a great thing. Nate's over here talking about California Paracon. That would be fun. I would go do that. I want to go check out that famous haunted hotel out there that Patty's always talking about, where like everybody goes in and it's a fucking shit show of a hotel. I don't know how else to explain the place. But make sure you're giving us a follow. And look, again, if you're finding us through them, I cannot explain to you how important it is to us, to Doug, to everything that we're doing for you to go on to whatever you listen to your podcast on, whether it be Apple, whether it be Podbean, whether it be broadcast, whether it be Spotify. I don't care what it is. Yep. You go in there and give that 5-star rating. I know it sounds like one of those kid shows like, go ahead and like and subscribe. But listen to me. Doug grows, collecting grows by you doing that because more people find Doug that way. Our people grow, more things happen that way because you do that. So taking your time, giving us a 5-star rating, leaving a comment. I don't even care if you just go in there and go, hey, the host has got an amazing beard, because he does. It's important to us. So please do those things for us. Doug, I know, brother, you got to get ready to make your run over there. Make sure DC's not giving away the whole farm.
Not giving away everything, man, because he will if he's not supervised.
You got to watch him. But as you know, the one rule we have here, the guest always gets the last word. So what's the last word, brother?
You know, it's find something that gives you joy. And if it's something that's collectible, love it, cherish it, learn from it, grow from it, you know, and make that your Everest and conquer your Everest. And then join us and be a part of our family.
I love it. Don't go away there, Doug. Be sure to push your stool in.
Yes.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.